Hello, everybody. This is Mike Szymanski. I represent the Los Angeles Bi Plus Task Force, and this is part of our Bi-alogue series, where we have very exciting topics to discuss every month or so. And this has been a very overwhelming group, the Bi Elders. It's the first time we actually sold out and are at capacity. So it's great. We have people in the waiting room coming in. So we'll take it a little slow. But what I want to say is that I added up the cumulative history of the four guests and me that we have here, and it's 251 years. And we don't look that old, but I'm the youngest at 33 years. And I'm just really proud that this group of people is here with us to talk about our history. I'm going to do really short introductions because I want to get to talking. So I'll start with me. I'm 33 years. I started writing about bisexuality in a magazine. The second coming out got me on the Phil Donahue show, where I met Lani and Lorraine, and the rest is my bisexual history. Robyn Ochs. By the way, it's Ochs, not Ox. It drives me crazy when I hear young activists talk about Robyn Ochs. I'm sure she does too. She's talked at more than 500 campuses. I mean, she's defined bisexuality as we know it today. If you don't know her, then turn in your bi card. You don't belong here. So Robyn has been around forever. And, you know, one of the things that I want this to be is to how people have influenced us in our own personal lives. And Robyn was the first person to convince me to get an email account. That's how far back we go. And I still have my AOL account. Robyn and me both had birthdays, by the way, recently on October 5th. So that was nice. 15 years apart, is what I'm reminded. ABilly S Jones-Henin is coming to us from Quintana Roo, Mexico, where it's hot right now, right? And he launched the first national gay and lesbian Black advocacy group in 1978. There's, you know, I'm not even going into that, but there's a great profile of him in AARP magazine, which is a mainstream magazine for elders. And it was great to see him. He's had a 45-year relationship with Chris, his husband, and I am that's inspiration for me to know that a bisexual can have a relationship that long. Lorraine Hutchins is a lifelong social activist. It's in her blood. Of course, she and Lani co-edited By Any Other Name, Bisexual People Speak Out. She directed BiNet's media efforts for the 1993 March on Washington, which I hope we will talk about because there were a lot of controversial things going on during that. You probably may know Lorraine from her most iconic picture in the Washington, D.C. parade on her bicycle, dressed as Wonder Woman with a very visible dildo prominently displayed. Lani Ka'ahumanu, she is Kanaka Mahole Kupuna, activist, author, poet, health advocate, safer sex educator, and strategic political architect of the early feminist bisexual movement. She's also my favorite, Hapahauli Wahine, which is the name of her beautiful poem that's in her book, in their book. So if you don't know that. And, you know, Lani was the one who marched with my mom in the March on Washington, and got to know her, got my mom involved in, I can't remember the name, the parents group about
PFLAG.
PFLAG, yes, got her involved in PFLAG. And my mom said, if Lani Ka'ahumanu can be bisexual, then it's a cool thing. So I thank you all for being here. Let's talk first about what moment in your bi-activism when you started early on that you knew that this was going to be a lifelong thing for you, that you just knew you're going to be in forever. You want to start, ABilly?
Oh, when did I decide? I don't know. I think it was, it's hard to put my finger on it, but for me, clearly deciding I was going to be a bisexual activist was 1980.
Okay. Okay. And did you know that it was going to be something you were going to be doing for a long time?
Considering that our sexuality is fluid, I was not clear that I was going to be as much of an activist or as involved as I am now. It's I transitioned from defining myself as a straight man, and then finding myself as a gay man, and then eventually saying, this is ridiculous. I got, as a gay man, I was being very closeted about my relationship, even with my wife, even though I dragged my poor kids around with me everywhere I went. And eventually, thanks to Lorraine, I got it. I mean, it took a while, but I was like, and that's because there was the terminology of bisexual, as I was identifying myself as a sexual minority. Bisexual was not an identity that people related to. And if you define yourself as bisexual, they would say, you're confused, you're just going through a phase, you're really gay, hiding behind the bisexual label.
How about you, Robyn? How did you know you were going to be a lifer?
I don't know. In a way, I started doing this, we like most of us, we started doing this work out of self-preservation to create space where there wasn't any. And I think the entire time I was doing this work until about 20 years ago, I was 100% certain that if I didn't do something, it wouldn't get done. I don't feel like that anymore. Now I'm doing it because I love it. Now I'm doing it because I feel that I'm good at it. I feel that I make a difference. But for the first 40 or so years of my advocacy work, I really did feel that if I didn't do it, or 30 years, if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. And so it felt like just something I had to do.
Sure.
And now there are a lot more people doing this work, and I feel much relieved.
Good.
And I know that if I step back, there will be other people still doing it.
I remember when I got involved, Lani was the one who was already ready to pass the mantle. And it's like, you're going to take over, you take over, and Lorraine too. I know, I see her nodding her head, but but you can't get away, Lani, you can't get away that easily. What made you know that this was going to be something you had to stay with?
You're talking to me now?
I am.
Okay, cool. Well, because I have identified as an activist since the 60s, different, and I was a lesbian feminist activist. And then I fell in love with a bisexual man who identified as a community organizer, an anti-sexist feminist man. And we met because he asked me if I had ever read A Woman Born, Adrienne Rich, a very radical book on the institution of motherhood. And we fell in love pretty much within a week. And we started talking about bisexual revolution right away. I called and talked to him. I said, did we really talk about bisexual revolution when we fell in love? He goes, oh yeah, that's all we ever talked about, in bed, out of bed. We wanted to organize a bisexual revolution. So that was in July 1980. And it was just, and I knew when I went back to San Francisco, I would be assumed to be kicked out of the community, but my heart was home there. I did not want to be kicked out. So I wasn't, and I knew there was a community inside that gay community and lesbian community, because enough people came out to me. They didn't watch my back. They didn't stand with me, but people would call me. You don't know me, but somebody gave me your phone number. So I knew people were in the community, but too afraid to come out as bisexual. So my whole activism was I was always excited. There's more of us here. Why can't we have community? I'm here, I'm going to stay here. And so I've always identified as a bisexual activist, and I still do. And I've come up with a little elder bisexual group I already have the logo, but I won't share it at the moment. So I think I'm an activist the rest of my life.
Yes, yes, indeed. And Lorraine, you've also done so many other different activism type of things too, but always bisexuality has been involved, right?
Well, the thing that made it for me was coming to San Francisco in the mid-'80s to see an old high school girlfriend who said, Lorraine, there's a bisexual contingent in the San Francisco Pride Parade. Go over to Lani Ka'ahumanu's house and sit in her living room and make posters. And I did, and I marched as Janis Joplin. And ever since then, you know, I've known it. The last person who inspired me, though, is Ibrahim Farajajeh, who was in Washington, D.C., and who was biphobic as hell until he met me. Bless his name.
And he went through a major transition too, didn't he? What a great guy. I was so delighted to meet him and get to know him too.
And I just want to add something. I spoke with Maggie Rubenstein last week, who just turned 92. And she came out in 1969 in San Francisco on the job because she was working at a city agency, a mental health agency that was seeing lesbian, gay, transgender, and heterosexual people. And she was at a staff meeting. She was a therapist, and she came out as bisexual and demanded that they, you know, recognize bisexual. So props to Maggie, and she was really excited about this Zoom.
That's great. Yeah, we got to have Maggie on here at some point too. That would be so fantastic. In fact, I look around, I'm looking at everybody and I'm thinking, oh my God, we got to do so many of these. We're going to have a couple of special guests come in to pop in to say hi to you all. Now we know that you all love all of us, so you don't need to spend time telling us that because we know that. But I wanted to bring in specifically from the historic perspective, Gary North, Gigi Wilbur-Rabens from Texas, and Wendy Curry from Boston. So literally every corner of the country are here to join us. And
Gary.
first of all, I just wanted you guys to say, I mean, maybe talk a little bit. Okay, I'll start it off. Wendy and Gigi were there when this got made. So you want to talk about it?
I think one of the things that inspired me so is actually having a flag. And it really kind of set the stage for, in my thinking, to start celebrate Bisexuality Day. And in Texas, I felt so isolated. I'd never met a bisexual till I went to the Bi conference in San Diego.
Oh.
And then you found a lot of
Everybody was either
bisexuals in
gay or
Texas.
straight. And so having the flag just was a very special moment for me because it just gave us a little bit of visibility. I knew there was bisexuals out there in the Houston area, but they were also hidden. And so I think part of it was just having Michael Page come up with the Bi Pride flag was just awesome.
Yeah, the flag, and I so wish we had Michael here today, but
Yeah.
the flag, and then sort of led to, which came from Bi Cafe, not Binet, but it sort of brought us together to start celebrate Bisexuality Day, which I know it's called a million things, but I'm going to stick with that name because it's about celebrating this group of people and how great we are together and not visible outwards. It's just embracing who we are. But anyway, yeah, so that was one of the first really fun things that Gigi and Michael and I did many years ago. But I'm totally here just fangirling because I haven't seen Lani and Lorraine together in one place in eons, and I'm just so happy to see them and hear from them. So.
We love you too, Wendy, too. And Gary, so when I first came out as bisexual in Los Angeles, there was just a voice phone and run by this guy named Gary North who would pick up questions from people who were bisexual. And that was all we had for a while here. And how did that evolve? And why did you get
That was my turn.
Gary?
I don't remember actually having a line, a phone line, but I did use the phone because there was no internet as such. And so I kept looking for a newsletter, and I couldn't find a newsletter. I couldn't find a magazine. I couldn't find anything. So I, being a reporter, I started making calls. Every call lined up or led to Lani, Lorraine, and Robyn, every single place, and Maggie at some point. And so I finally, asked, I forget who, but Lani said, well, if there's no newsletter, then you have to start it yourself. I said, well, I'm not an activist. I'm a journalist, and I was going to, I'm looking for a newsletter. And Lani said, so I said, I'm a journalist. She said, Gary, you're doing something that no one else is trying to do. You're a leader. You're an activist. That was it. So I thought, oh, okay. So that was the light bulb turning on. And it's been that way ever since, on and off.
I'm interested in from especially the three that you mentioned, why were there not more men involved in the early bi movement? Or were there? I mean, ABilly was, but he was involved with his at that time gay branch, but and he evolved into more bisexual stuff. But was there a reason why
Yes,
Well,
there was. At least as far as because when I was running the newsletter, I interviewed, of course, those three, and one of them was, of course, Robyn. And so I said, how come there aren't more men involved? And she says, well, it's pretty simple. If you ask a lesbian, or I'm sorry, a man, they go to the bars, the baths, and the beaches. If you ask a woman, she goes to the shelters. She goes to the all the different places that activist women go to. And that was the big difference, that the men were more interested in, their penises. She didn't say that, I did. And the
Well,
women were activists.
go ahead, Billy. I'll come after you.
Well, number one, we weren't invited. So if you're not invited to the table, you don't come to the table. You don't impose yourself. And the assumption that, part of my activism is within the Black community. That's I am dealing with bisexuality among Black women and men and trans people. However, I've always had bisexual men around me. I was part of GAMA, which is Gay Bi Married Men Association. I was part of Gay Parenting, which also had bisexual men in it. But as a bisexual group, yes, we got involved late. My involvement with the bisexual movement was because I was invited. Otherwise, I know I would define myself as bi, but and in fact bi plus, but I'm not sure I would have been part of a movement, and if I had not been invited. And Lorraine was the one that pulled me into activism as a bisexual.
Lani?
I'd say a couple of things to that. The bi movement in San Francisco, and then the Bay Area, it was half men. Alan Rockway, David Laurier, there was Hap Stewart, and there was Ron Bracamonte. They were really active in ACT UP. And all four of those men died of AIDS. There were bisexual men involved in the movement in San Francisco and in the Bay Area, for sure, founding founding BIPOL. They were part of Bay Area Bisexual Network, but many of the Bay Area bisexual men died of HIV/AIDS. And I would say that has something to do with the men not being involved. I think a lot of bisexual men were involved in HIV/AIDS. I mean, how could you not be if you were part? I mean, the more heterosexually experienced and identified men that used, well, let me back up for a sec. There was a bisexual center in San Francisco from 1976 to 1984, an actual place you went to. But by 1984, and so many people, so many men were dying, that the bisexual center closed because a lot of the more heterosexually identified or suburban bisexual people became very afraid and backed off. And those that were more involved with the gay and lesbian or the queer community, they started becoming involved with HIV/AIDS. And I think that is a piece of it, And I know the San Francisco Bay Area community lost many of our leaders, which affected that a lot, affected our community and our movement a lot.
Robyn?
I do want to say that there have always been bi men involved in the movement, of course. The proportions were not 50-50, at least in Boston, but they've, of course, bi men have always been there, and bi men have always been some of the leaders. It's just that most of the people that I came across as activists were women. But that's proportional. It's not ever meant to be an absolute statement. There have been many, many wonderful and fabulous bi men who have been involved from day one, including some people who are here on this Zoom. So
Yeah,
I never ever would want to be I don't think I said anything that absolute, and but I absolutely honor the bi men who are involved, and I wish there were like tons and tons more of bi men, also bi women, also bi non-binary folks. I feel like we need tons and tons more of
as many as possible,
every possible identity and every gender to get more involved. And that's always been a challenge. What a tiny percentage of the folks that identify as bi actually get involved. That's always been a challenge. But anyway, yeah, so I love all of you, and I just want to say that. And I never would want to be perceived as saying like, oh, you people weren't here at all, because you were here. I mean, obviously ABilly has been here longer than I've been here, so just to name one human.
I would like to flip the conversation and why were there so many amazing bi women involved?
That's a good flip.
And how it relates to feminism. But actually the other questions that Michael sent out, I like more than those questions. So let's just park those for future Zooms.
Okay. Well, if you want to take any of those questions that I skip over, let me know, because we will not be able to get to everything. I did give them some questions in advance. I want, before we let Gary, Gigi, and Wendy go, I wanted to know if you guys had anything in particular that any of these panelists meant to you or helped you with your activism.
I didn't understand the question.
It was for, I was asking Wendy, Gigi, and Gary what influences you guys have had on them.
Who's them?
Who's them? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You mean how Gary North blew my mind, and he came up with North by Northwest National Newsletter in the late 80s? That was terrific. And Gigi, I remember meeting Gigi at the San Diego Bi Conference. He rode his motorcycle alone from Texas, and he comes in, and at the party that night he had mini skirt and fishnets, and he was fabulous. And I loved him instantly. And Wendy, dear Wendy, I've just always had a special place for your activism and your words. Always very clear thinker and fun to laugh with.
Now she's
Is that what you meant, Mike?
the other way around, but that's fine. That is
Oh,
what,
okay.
have to
I
say,
do want to say that one person that clearly had an impact on me and influenced me was Ibrahim. Oh dear, Lorraine, help me with the last name.
Darajaje.
Yes. And the fact that when I met him, like me, he was married to a woman who supported him. And I had a similar situation in Minneapolis. Again, a Black man who was married to a woman who supported him. We're both open. But the difference was the guy in Minneapolis didn't use the term bisexual, and wherein Abraham did. And so it was definitely food for thought.
yes, definitely, definitely. Well, thank you, Wendy, and Gigi, and Gary. We'll put you back in the peanut gallery, and we'll have questions that everyone can answer. Talk
Jump
later.
in real
Mike,
quick.
one more thing, Denham. As a Black man and people of color and women don't have the luxury of being single focused. When I came into the movement, I was surrounded by people that were saying you have to stick to a gay agenda. It has to be gay, 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 gay. And I said, I can't do that. You know, I mean, my activism was in the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. And then eventually into the LGBTQ community. And even coming into the LGBTQ community, you know, I'm probably more noted for being the founder of the National Coalition of Black Lesbians and Gays. But at the same time, creating a third world conference that we probably wouldn't use that, but that brought people together. But I was much more active before that and got my activism skills from my bisexual father. Okay, I just needed to put that in.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Gigi, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that for years I tried to find anything on bisexuality, and it was by any other name that was one of the first books I came across that just was this shining ray of hope. And I just wanted to thank Lani and Lorraine for doing the book. It was really a shining out for me.
Well, thank you. That's our perfect transition to our next topic, which is the influence of By Any Other Name. When I had the delight of reading back, you know, I have like 6 copies of these, and I didn't realize why I did. It's because I have signatures and autographs from everybody in different books. So like Amanda signed this one, and so-and-so signed this one. And I realized that like half of the book are friends of mine, and it's wonderful. But let's take us back to when Robyn wrote her piece in this. She was talking about being single again, and and how she hopes that someday she will meet the love of her life, which she has, in fact. And but it's interesting. Have you ever gone back, Robyn, and read this? And what have you thought about your transition to now and your relationship with Peg and all?
It's been a while since I last read it. Oh, I do have at least 2 or 3 copies though on my bookshelf right over there. I know that the essay was called From the Closet to the Stage, and it talked about me coming out and finding my own power as
And all your different relationships. Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I think actually even back when I wrote that, I was looking really hard for a relationship. No, I wasn't. I can't remember if I was.
Late 80s.
But there was a point, actually probably right after I wrote that, where I became really happy with myself. I decided that I was whole and didn't need someone else to make me whole. And almost like Shel Silverstein's The Missing Piece, you know, I just feel like I finally figured out that I was a whole person with or without a partner. And a couple of years after that, I actually took a 6-year break from relationships, and then and was very happy being in a primary relationship with myself. And then after 6 years, I met Peg. And I was very surprised. And yeah, we're in season 26 of our rom-com right now. We've been together, I think this is our 26th year, perhaps our 27th, I don't know. It's been long enough, but I don't know for sure. But it's really good. And I never did give up being in a primary relationship with myself, though. And I think that's what makes it work for me. Like I have my own solid core, and I have my time to myself, and I have a lot of privacy, and I also really enjoy spending time with this woman who is my life partner.
And Lani and Lorraine, did you ever imagine that this book would be such the iconic bi representation that it is still today, translated in how many languages? And, you know, I mean, when you first did this, could you imagine that 40 years later we'll be talking about it?
It's not really translated in a lot of languages except for Mandarin Chinese, but and I want to say there's 76 contributors in the book. It's not Lani and Lorraine's book. I mean, Billy and Robyn were in the book, and other people. You know, yes, I imagined it when Lani came for the 1987 March in Washington and left me a note saying, "Let's write the book that we want to read." I believed her.
Lani, what do you think?
I think as we wrote it in late 80s, we were building community writing that book. We were collecting stories to represent our community as best we could. And yes, there were certain times we would say, where are the men, you know, that would write stories for the book. So we knew we were writing a wave. The community, the national movement was coming of age, and we were writing this wave, and the book was going to come out in the early 90s. It came out in 1991 in February, and we knew it was riding a wave. It was right after the first National Bisexual Conference in 1990. So we knew, and that if you have stories are what grab people, they identify with something. You could find, anybody can open that book and find somebody, something, somebody that goes, oh my God. And so that was one of the funnest part, is putting, you know, we were talking to over, it was 120 something people at one time. And people, you know, there was some people that their story was going to be in the book. We were that close, and they pulled it away because it was scary. So it was, I saw it as community organizing, really, and then putting it out there to help give a mirror, give people, you know, you're not alone. Our community is huge, and it gets huger all the time, thank goodness.
And how wonderful that this book represents so
And
many.
Mike,
sorry.
I think an example, again, I was invited by Lorraine to contribute an article, and the focus of mine was on parenting.
Right.
And I think it was an interview with one of my daughters.
Peaches.
With Peaches, yes. At the time, and she wasn't totally on board with me as a sexual minority, as a gay man or a bisexual man. But it was still a worthwhile interview. It would be interesting to have us do a follow-up interview. But it's, you know, being a parent was my center at that time. Not being an activist. I wasn't in denial about anything, because I took my kids every demonstration, they still talk about all the places, but we rode all the way to Houston, Texas, from DC for the 1970 March, a meeting to argue about everything.
Great.
And try to resolve it.
Robyn?
I want to take a moment and appreciate the work that Lani and Lorraine did in putting together By Any Other Name. And I think one of you just said that it's a book where everybody, like, hopefully everybody can find themselves somewhere in that book. And when you think of things through an intersectional framework, you know, and understand that everybody has many different identities, and all of our identities shape who we are and how we experience ourselves as bi people. It's just so important to have many different stories out there, because no one story will speak to every bi person. And, you know, you were my inspiration for going ahead and doing the 2 anthologies that I co-edited, one with Sarah Rowley and one with Dr. Harukati, who is here. Hi.
Dr.
And-
Hey, good.
Yeah, and I just think that it's just so important. And I think that, you know, I was modeling our work after your work, just understanding that to understand the experience of any identity, you need multiple stories.
And it did have such an amazing, I mean, it has two-spirited people, it has pan people before they knew they were pan, it has, you know, it's amazing when what this book encompasses. And I mean, Annie Sprinkle, Carol Queen, incredible, you know, writers. It was just, it really is still iconic. And I wanted to bring in another surprise, my co-author of the
Nicole.
Is she here? There she is.
I'm here.
She's the only person who's under 50 who's going to be on this panel to speak, but she'll it'll be short. But I wanted, you know, tell them about what
Frozen for other people.
how it worked for us with getting this book together, inspired by any other name.
Mike, you were kind of frozen on my end and I missed what you said. I'm so sorry.
Okay, well, I was just going to say, if you wanted to tell them about what our inspiration was to do By Any Other Name, was partly to get other books on a bookshelf in a gay lesbian bookstore that had bisexual, because they didn't break out bisexuals as a category. There was no other, there were few.
That's right.
And
Yeah, I mean, I can say that when I was in college, I used to go to the gay bookstore and I found Lani and Lorraine's book. And I was about 18 and I was like, I didn't know if I was bisexual or what. And I remember Lani came and did a reading in Eugene, Oregon for the book. And it was like this thing I'd waited to happen for like weeks and weeks. And I came in and saw Lani and I went up to you. I don't know if you remember this. And I said, I told you my story. And I said, so I need you to tell me, am I bisexual? And you said, I can't tell you that. You have to figure that out on your own. And I was so disappointed. I was like, how could you just not tell me? I had had all these questions and I was trying to figure this out. And I just thought I should know definitively at 18, you know, and that was the first time I met you. And it was like so inspirational, amazing. And then I wrote that article for the college magazine called By Ourselves. And I interviewed you and I wrote about biphobia at a time when I didn't even know it existed really. And I remember I had a magazine editor who said, no, this is a thing. And I found out later it was because his wife was bisexual and she was dealing with biphobia. So I actually wrote that article and no one knew it was even an issue. And I got some gay men on record to say it was bad for the gay movement to acknowledge bisexuality as valid, which you all know about that. But anyway, yeah, so it was my dream after writing that article to do a bisexuality book. And Mike came to me and said he had this contract, but he needed a woman to write some of the book. And I said, okay. And I was 20. I thought I knew everything about bisexuality at that point. and we, you know, wrote this it was kind of a lighthearted comedic take that probably has some things in it that are very dated and offensive at this point. But
definitely.
I still was very proud of it back then in 2006.
Well, and it was the first award-winning Lambda Literary Award bisexual category. Now they have 3 bisexual categories. I love it. They have by fiction, by nonfiction, and by poetry. So
Wow.
Yay, we got you know, more categories in the Lambda Awards, and that was great. Thanks, Nicole.
Well, you know, By Any Other Name was nominated for Best Anthology, but the only category they could put us in was Best Lesbian Anthology.
How are you going to win that one?
I know. I went to the ceremony anyway because I thought, you know what? Had to represent.
Well, we were going to try to get Wayne and Matt LeGrant in here, but We weren't able to, but but we'll, we may do something just on the book at some point because it's such an important part of our history. And just it launched so many other authors. Every other bisexual author I know was inspired by a book like this. So, congratulations to that. I think it's really cool. Any more that you guys wanted to add about by any other name? I know we're going to have questions about that, and I want to get to those. I want to talk about how the international movement became a big thing with bisexuality, and I think we have two special guests. Hilda Vossen from Rotterdam.
Oh, Hilda.
I'm so excited. Is she here? Hilda? And Wayne Roberts from Australia.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, sorry.
They were coming, so I think Mimi's looking for them. But to this, I mean, the national and international movement. There's a picture, by the way. There's a gallery on labytaskforce.org of pictures that I slapped together last night that I could find in books. And there's a panel of me and Mark Silver, Lorraine and Lani at Harvard at the International Bisexual Conference, right?
Oh, wow.
It was just amazing. And you're talking to somebody, I don't know who you're talking to, but I know I identified Mark Silva. Anyway, there's a bunch of pictures on our gallery, so look at that. How did you see this become an international movement? Did it spontaneously happen, or we started it, right? I mean, is that too arrogant to say?
Well, Jan Hansen, I know, was very involved with ILGA, the International Lesbian Gay Organization. And I know she and Wayne Roberts represented bisexuals there for many, many decades. Well, maybe not decades, but many, many years for sure. And that was one way. And in the 1990 conference, there was 5 different countries represented in 1990 at the National Bisexual Conference. So I think by then we had an awareness of everybody, but without internet, once internet hit and the World Wide Web, all that exploded and we could talk with each other, which was incredible.
And that's how we got Hilda here, who is in some godforsaken time zone, right?
Oh,
Yeah, it's for me 3 a.m. Hello, everybody.
wow.
Yes, it's absolutely the internet that got us the bi revolution internationally, because I remember 3 bi guys like Frits Klein, Maurice Snellen from the Netherlands, and I think Wayne Roberts from Australia, who were chatting with each other on soc.bi. It is a channel that I didn't know of. It's way beyond my time. But I realized there were international bi conferences. For example, there was a conference in Boston, there was a conference in Berlin, and that got the stuff started. And I was one of the attendees of a conference in Toronto where I met Mike. And that was for me also very special. I felt super exotic because I was one of the 2 persons from Europe. I live in the Netherlands, in The Hague, by the way. And the international movement is still going strong. We have still a European network. We have an ILGA Europe conference coming up next week. And
Oh, wow.
I'm still building Team Bs. I call them Team Bisexual, and I now have a team of 15 people, and they are coming from Armenia, from countries that you do not think of any bi movement, but there are bi people, and I'm still kind of collecting them to exchange information, to give them the feeling that they are not alone. Some of them are hyper young, like 19 or something. I'm in my 50s. And I feel like, Robyn Ochs introduced the term bi mama, and I feel like I'm doing this also for a kind of caring for the movement, a caring for not feeling alone, because there are a lot of bright people around. They are setting up strategies to get the movement further. And for example, within Europe, it's happening. It's better than ever. The only thing, the trouble is getting money to get our movements on a higher level, more professional. So yeah, that's international networking, and it's something I still love to do. I love the questions, Mike, so I'm writing them down. I enjoy this very much. Thank you.
Thank you for popping in and staying awake for us. Robyn, go ahead.
I am so excited to see my friend Hilda here. I am so excited to see you. There's a whole lot of work going on all in so many different parts of the world, and Hilda is definitely like the glue of all of the European things. And I also want to just add that every single conference I've ever been to, attended, or spoke at in any part of the world, she has shown up, including the Philippines. Yeah, and I just. I'm the editor of a book, of a publication called By Women Quarterly, and we've been doing a around the world feature, and every single issue features someone from a different country, and there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of stuff happening. The Philippines has a whole bunch of stuff happening. There are a whole bunch of different countries that are doing amazing local organizing. They're all small like us. I mean, they're all doing the work with not enough resources, but they're doing it. There's so much more visibility in so many more places, and it's really exciting.
And I mean, I was contacted by somebody in the Amazon. I sent them some copies of Anything That Moves. He's using it for his master's degree. And then somebody in Italy contacted me, 2 different activists in Italy, who had almost the full Anything That Moves magazine, and I sent him, so he has a full set, and he works in the museum, and he's going to do a whole show. And then just the other day, somebody wrote me from Italy and said they wanted to translate every Anything That Moves magazine.
Wow.
Wow is right. I was just like, my goodness. And just Anything That Moves magazine is being professionally digitized, and it'll be available for researchers and everything at some point. So that's very exciting too.
Billy, is there a bi community in Mexico that you've connected with while you're there?
I'm not found it yet, but I'm looking for it. Well, you know, I mean, my husband is also bisexual, and was married to a woman that identifies as bisexual. So the beat goes on. So if nothing else, maybe the 3 of us, she professes to be married to both of us. Not sure how to define that. But yes, there's hope. Meanwhile, I stay connected to bi groups in DC, as Black Lotus, that meets once a month with Black bi men. So there are ways for me to stay connected regardless of where I am.
And I want to add that you guys' influence, my panel, is so important when we talk about the last 2 guests, special guests that came in, Hilda and Nicole. They both are amazing activists. Nicole has turned Still Bisexual into a place that getting grants, and she's being respected by mental health organizations all throughout Los Angeles. And Hilda is internationally known as a bisexual activist now, and I consider both of them my little sister, and so to see them both here too. So, but it's because of you all. It really is, and I hope that you understand that influence as well. I guess we don't have Wayne, right? He was going to try to make it on. Okay. I wanted to bring one other person on, then we're going to go to questions, but I want to talk about big media influences and things that happened in the media that were big. One of them that I did want to bring up is going on the Phil Donahue show, which is where I'm Lorraine and Robyn. And there is a funny picture that I just found, and I looked at it closely. Lani and I shared a green room. We shared one of the rooms together. It had our names on room 4. And it was like, well, have they put the bisexuals together, you know, and male and female. It was interesting. But yeah, so that was when I first met you guys, and that was the beginning of my activism on a national level. And I thought a big kind of moment in bi outreach. Let's bring in Denise. Denise
Penn.
Penn. She's also
My God. Hi, honey. Oops.
never changed, Joe, right? So Denise, what you did this talk show for how many years, and with Connie Norman, and you covered a lot of bisexual issues. You were always out as bisexual. It was one of the longest running local talk shows, right?
Right. And so, hi, everybody. It's so great to see so many people here that I haven't seen in so long. You know, so good to see you. The community television show was in Long Beach. We had an hour of live time and would repeat every other week. So that was live television, something they don't do anymore. And you know, some people called us the gay Wayne's World, you know, because we had a lavalier microphone taped to a speakerphone to take live calls, which were very interesting too. But the television show was started by Bob LaFont, a gay man in Long Beach, and I'm in Orange County, and was a editor and journalist for the Orange County and Long Beach Blade. And so I would come up, and I was kind of like the Orange County correspondent. And at some point, Bob was attacked and nearly killed in a hate crime, which has never been solved, by the way. And so we really worked hard to keep that show going, and through 2009, and had, you know, and that gave me an opportunity to have lots of bisexuals on the show. Lots of you are here today who've been on the show. Because even though it was called the Gay and Lesbian News Magazine, I began to say, welcome to the Gay and Lesbian News Magazine, focusing on the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community and everyone who loves us. So yes, so of course, Mike's been on a lot, you know, talking about activism and the books.
And every time I came back from a bi conference, I talked about everybody here. So
yes.
What do you think these people represent on our panel as far as media goes, and do you have any remembrances in the past couple of decades of highlights of bi media that were really significant?
I think it's always been very difficult. You know, and what I would do is I would always look for an opportunity to highlight a bi person. And as some of you know, that I was the news editor of the Lesbian News for quite a long time. And nobody, when you're a writer, unless you're out doing something else, people don't know who you are. They don't know, you know, but as soon as, it was Amy Andre wrote a letter to the editor saying, hey, you know, you guys had this comment in here about bisexuals and I don't like this. And because of that, they said, okay, Denise, you can have a whole page and write an article about bisexuality. So it was like we had to look for those opportunities to focus on bi issues. And, you know, and of course, Mike, I'll share this with you. I mean, when Mike, a lot of times when Mike would come on the show, people would call in and say, was he really bi? He's got a boyfriend. And you know, and they, you know, I mean, that's the whole thing that still to this day, that stigma that you're identified by the gender or perceived gender of your perceived partner. So it gave us an opportunity to educate people.
What did you all, the rest of the panel, do you feel were highlights? Now, I do want to bring up, I think this is part of it, and Lorraine and Lani were both involved with it. And I was too, as a journalist, I was covering the march, and Lani was going to be kind of the tail end speaker of the march. And I were backstage with her, like off stage, when they told her her speech was suddenly cut like to fractions, if not at all. And she was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I had this speech planned and now they're giving me what, I don't know how many seconds or something they said. And you just went on and you gave the most amazing impassioned speech. It had everybody in tears. I think I was one of the first people to hug you coming off the stage, and it was such an amazing, amazing moment. But you know, you fought to get on that freaking stage, right? To even have it you know, be part of it, right? Wasn't that your doing, Lorraine and Lani?
It was, well, it was a long process to get on the stage because it's a big story, Mike. Yeah, I mean, we fought to, the way I think, I could see that it was, bisexuals had stood up enough in big cities across the country. We were visible enough, and this is all on the phone, 12 cities. I was talking to leaders in 12 different cities, and I said, we're going to do I think we should do an endorsement campaign to get bisexual in the title of the March on Washington, because we have all these lesbian and gay people saying they'll watch our back and they don't, or they'll remember us and they don't. But they've never been tested to walk the walk. And if we tell them I wrote a statement saying it's time to add bisexual to the March on Washington, and gave a lot of examples, including the gay, lesbian, bisexual veterans. Thanks, Cliff, you know, our dear friend Cliff, who was part of founding the gay, lesbian, bisexual veterans. And there were a few other people that were including bisexual. And so bisexuals spread out all over the country to get signatures from gay and lesbian people, forcing them to walk the walk. Yes, it's time. Anyway, so there was a big Name the March meeting in Los Angeles, and we went down, California went down, and many other states too went to include transgender people. And they wouldn't vote transgender in, they didn't want bisexual in. And in the end, the only way they would include bisexual is to get rid of the sexual. So it ended up the March on Washington for lesbian and gay, bi, equal rights and amendment. And there were 18 speakers of the day, and I was humbled to be asked to be a speaker, and I was the 18th speaker of the day. Haha. 1993. And because so many speakers had come on stage, the national parks were going to turn off the sound system. So they came to me and the 17th speaker and said, cut your speech in half. And it was a 5-minute speech. They told us to cut it in half, which was intense. And so I knew my speech was 7 minutes. So when I gave the speech, I just started cutting it, because it was about 30 seconds later when they said you're on, and I had to give the speech. But by then the media tent had been taken down, and there was no media, there was nothing. They were, if you see the video, they're taking the stage down when I'm talking. But it was still very powerful to be up there to represent us. And there was over 1,000 bisexuals in the contingent. So I felt, I just was full of everybody. I'm terrified to do public speaking. I was so neurotic to do this, I have to tell you. But that day I felt so full of every bisexual. And actually, and I did talk about transgender people, because at the time bi and trans people were working together. And just a little aside, I have to say that bi and trans people were working together, and there were many gay and lesbian leaders who would say, we'll include bisexual if you toss transgender people under the bus. And I am so proud the bisexual movement never did that. We said, no, it's all of us or none of us. No, we won't do that. So yeah, the March on Washington was an incredible, mind-boggling. I still am full of the energy of that day. It was amazing.
Quite amazing in our history too, definitely. I think one of the major highlights, absolutely. I want to really open up for questions, but before that, there was one really cool question that I wanted to ask us very quickly. And if you could spend a few hours chatting alone with a bisexual, alive or dead, who would it be? And I'll go first because I have a very quick one. Mine would be James Dean and Marilyn Monroe, but I wouldn't think that they would give me proper answers. So I would really like to spend time with Oscar Wilde. I think that would have been the guy I could have spent time with. All right, next, who wants to go?
For me, it would be my father, who was also bisexual, but was not, that wasn't, well, he didn't use any label, actually. But my mom, he was apparently open about it. My mom knew that he had a boyfriend, and I would just like to have it. It would be nice to be able to have a conversation with them. Hopefully, most of it would be positive, but there is some not so positive stuff. I'd like to have a conversation with them also.
Cool. I'd love to hear that conversation. Lorraine?
Bessie Smith,
Bessie Smith. Why?
just because she sang it.
Yeah, she'd be cool to hang out with, that's for sure. Lorraine? I mean, Lani?
Eleanor Roosevelt and Josephine Baker.
At the same time?
No, that would be that would be different.
Yeah.
Although Eleanor would probably be pretty cool with the whole thing, I'm sure.
Yeah. Josephine Baker, man, would that be cool? Robyn, how about you?
I'm not sure, but I actually want to go back to the question right before it and just do a shout out to a really, really important media resource, which is there's a group of folks in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who have put out over 300 episodes of a show called By Cities, one word. It's in the chat. And they just got the Treader Collection, which is an LGBTQ archives based at the University of Minnesota. They have now, they're all up online and available for free for anyone to watch. And there are over 300 episodes. And like when I think about media, like what Denise, what you were talking about, I actually didn't know about, and it's really exciting. And I just think that we need to create our own media. Like we also need to like make sure that we're represented in mainstream media, but we need to create our own media and get our own voices out there. And all the grassroots work that's being done needs light shined on it. And I'm really excited. I was just in Minneapolis, St. Paul over the weekend at the Because conference, and they're doing that's really exciting work.
That sounds great. We'll definitely put a link in that too. I'm going to have a story with links for all of us for the panel and also the ones that we mentioned, but that sounds like something we all need to binge watch. That would be fun. How great. That's cool. Well, so let's open it up for questions and see what we've got. And then I have a final one to wrap up, but Mimi, how do we do this? Do people raise their hands and you bring them in? Okay.
Yeah, people can either raise their hands or type right into the chat.
Okay. Oh, then I have to read them off the chat, right? What do the elders think about TikTok by activism? Love it or hate it? From Ross.
Just don't even.
You don't TikTok?
I've seen it. I'm sorry. I'll shut up. I'm
Go
muting.
ahead. Go ahead. We want to hear from you.
No, not on TikTok.
Okay. I'm still with texting.
I have mixed reaction. There's some good stuff on TikTok. I find most of it crap.
But Robyn,
I'm not on TikTok.
I mean, yeah, you can dance though. You could be on it. I mean,
I'm
gotta
on
say that
Twitter,
I-
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm not on TikTok.
I know.
It takes, I think each of these things takes so much time and there are so many things.
But I get, so, all right, let me ask this broader question. How do you see the activism of today going on in the bi community? And are there things that you would suggest or give advice to, or that you would like to see? I know that's a loaded question in some respect, but
Okay, can you repeat the first part of the question?
yeah, is there how do you see the bi-activism of today going on? And is there something that you feel like they're missing or that you would like to see more of, or something else going on? Like, for example, conferences. We don't have conferences anymore. There used to be a conference I would go to every half year in the 80s and 90s.
Well, because it's still happening though.
Yeah, that's
right,
still
yes, I'm
because
sorry I missed
conference.
that, yeah. But I mean, I'm saying even regional conferences, and you know,
Yeah.
of course, the pandemic put a big kibosh on that, but yeah, it kind of petered out in the 2000s, and I was sorry about that. I know we're talking about trying to start up a conference with some of the Southern Cal people again, but it takes a lot of work, as Hilda can say. Hilda, go ahead.
I would like to see honest, genuine participation, involvement of bi people. It's gotten so that it's politically correct to say LGBTQ, you know, the B is there, but when the visibility of bisexuals is not there, the inclusion of bisexual is not there. So I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of getting respect as bisexuals.
Yes. Hilda, you have a question.
Yeah, hi. I do not have a question, but I would love to react on the topic conferences.
Yeah.
It's October, and there will be a meetup of Interpride in Mexico in October this year. And there are 2 bids for World Pride in Amsterdam and in Orlando, if I'm right. So when we will hear, and that's for all of us information, that Amsterdam will get the World Pride in 2026. This means that BiPress Netherlands will organize an international bi conference. I will give my life for that.
Good for you.
No, I will give my life for that.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow, good.
When you hear that Amsterdam will get it, this means that there is busy business going on in the Netherlands, and we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a question, Lani. There's always been talk about you writing your memoirs or book. How is that going, and when can we?
Well, here's the deal. I have been my son's full-time caregiver for 8 years, and he lives with me, and that has been my main life. It's all-consuming. I don't know if you've ever been a caretaker for someone or a caregiver that you live with in a small space. So I haven't had the time or the attention. And about a month ago, his health took a turn to a good turn. And I have more time now, and I'm trying right now to figure out, okay, how do I get back into that headset to finish this? Because my goal has been, for the last 2 years, is to have it done by my 80th birthday, which is next October 5th. So depending on my life situation, my family situation, it depends on my family situation. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
I would love to have it done because I want to do some bi documentaries, because I have all this. I have interviews with many of these people that you've seen in the can, as they say. And I'd love to pull from that because I did those interviews in the early 2000s. So I want to do that. I want to do documentaries after the book. So in my 80s, my book will come out and I'll do the documentary.
Beautiful. Well, obviously we are all looking forward to it, and
Me too.
yeah, and I'm sure we'll help however we can. I know many of us already have, so that's great. I was being asked to give other people the chance of suggesting where you feel the Bi movement is going now. Do you have any thoughts?
Can I say something?
Please.
Unpopular, probably. I don't think there is a
God.
Bi movement that's going anywhere except organizing some conferences and some Zooms like this. And I think there's a lot of healing and a lot of regrouping that could be done, but I don't see it as the Bi movement. I see it as a sexual liberation movement and a human rights movement that's much larger than people who use a B label or a B+ label. And
so what would you like to see?
what, Michael?
What is it that you would like to see instead of conferences or?
A larger sexual liberation movement that's about human rights, that's intersectional and that's led by people of color and other people who are disproportionately affected, who are losing their voting rights, our voting rights, and our rights to control our own bodies.
Yeah. Do you
And
think?
I think that there are bisexuals. The bi identity movement is, I'm not sure, but there's out bisexuals within all the like human liberation movements. It's easier to be out as a bisexual, a Bi+ person, however you identify, because there's our world is in trouble. The earth is in trouble. Democracy is in trouble. And that standing up as a Bi person, but when you're coming out, your Bi identity is really important, and to gain strength inside yourself for that. And in the world we live in right now, it's important to stand up and fight for democracy, save the earth. It's the intersectionality right now is, I don't know, it's a hard time, and it's a time when it's so chaotic, it gives everybody an opportunity to stand up, because you have to. And no matter what issue you take, you stand up. And I agree with Lorraine about people representing, who's representing. And vote, please, go vote, register, vote.
Yeah,
I
you've
I
dealt
would
with more young people than anybody, I think, than all of us. So
What'd you say?
I think you've dealt with more young people than all of us. So it'd be interesting to hear your take as well.
I guess I would agree to a very large extent with what both Lorraine and Lani said. I think that we do need a broader, we have some really big issues to deal with. However, at the same time, we need to make sure that there are a bunch of folks out there making sure that people remember that bisexuals exist, and insisting that we, be taken seriously, and that we be included and in many cases centered in, in the work of the larger movements. And I think that that's our, and I think that what's happening right now, what I'm starting to see is there are some folks, and again, everything's small scale because we have a very small movement, but like people working to do capacity building, the Visibility Impact Fund. Like there's actually a fund now to create grants to make it possible to give grants to Bi+ specific work. I think there's some really exciting stuff happening. What I said about Bi Cities, Bi Women Quarterly, which I edit, all the advocacy work. We just had a Bi+ health policy meeting at the White House with White House and HHS officials 2 weeks ago that Mimi, who is behind the scenes coordinating, was part of, and so was I, and 13 other people. It was limited because of COVID number restrictions, but it was, it was actually somewhat impactful, and we've had some follow-up that has made a certain amount of difference. And again, have we reached a level of effectiveness and size that I would like to see? Absolutely not, but are we getting some stuff done? And I think we are regrouping, Lorraine. There's definitely been some healing that has been long needed. And I don't know, I think we have to kind of walk and chew gum and sing and tap dance and cook dinner at the same time.
That's true. There's a question from Bren from the BiPAN Library, which I would love to hear more about. It says, for those of you who have organized, edited, or written an anthology, what lessons did you learn through the experience? And what do you have any advice for younger activists who are preserving the stories of our generation? Organizing a BiPAN anthology is something I hope to do someday, and your work has been inspirational. Thank you.
The publishing community changed hugely from 1991, hugely, and it became much more self-publishing, and publishers themselves much less reliable.
Yeah, it seems like self-publishing is the way to go these days almost. It's the way to do it yourself and do it the way you want to, and it's so much easier.
Well, but you have to have certain resources and access to them.
That's true. That's true.
I would say that one thing that I've done, that Dr. Hukati and I did, especially with the anthology that we co-edited on bisexual men, is we put out our call for writing, we got it out as many places as we could, and then we sat down and looked to see whose voices were still missing.
Yeah,
And we spent another year trying to specifically invite specific people whose voices we felt needed to be part of the conversation. And so whatever you're pulling together, the person who wrote that question, I would say, be really intentional about making sure that it's as broad and wide ranging in representation as you can possibly make it, even if it takes more time, even if it's inconvenient. It's really important.
And
Also-
I would say people of color really need to be more visible in the bi community. And we need to hear the voices in print as well as visual. So that's my thought.
Lorraine?
Oh, I just wanted to give a pitch for the special issue of the Journal of Bisexuality that Dr. H just edited, which is only available online, I'm sorry to say. And I don't even know the title of it, but it is a special legacy memory issue in honor of Ibrahim Farajadeh and his work in the world as a multi-religious spiritual leader and a Sufi. And again, Robyn, just like you said, Dr. H waited until he could have the right kind of people of color speaking about, or any kind of people speaking about Ibrahim, and didn't want to release it until he did. And it's beautiful. And my piece in it is called Sex Toys on the Altar.
He was certainly a magical person to anyone who got to meet him. I'm lucky I did that brief time. I want to, we'll have time for more questions if we have time, but I do want to have a wrap-up question in asking each of you, how do you want to be remembered for your bi legacy? I know that's a hard one, and we don't like to talk about things like that, but Billy, have you thought about that?
Did you call upon me?
I did. Do you, how do you want to be remembered?
Books don't remember you, but so long. Come back to me.
That's all right.
a
Yeah, sure.
tough one. Come back to me.
I can say something real quick about myself, even though I wasn't supposed to be part of this question, but already on my tombstone, it says, still bringing people together, journalist, activist, uncle, friend. And I really feel like my life has been this is a real example of that. And on the back of my tombstone, it talks about me, you have written about bisexuality. So that's even better. So that's my legacy. Robyn, you're smiling.
I guess what I would want to know after the end of my life is that or at the end of my life is that I helped other people find their voice so that they could do all this amazing work that they're going to do, that to multiply ourselves and just really help people, lift people up and help them like get their wings and start flying. Because there are so many wonderful people out there now who weren't out there 10 years ago, and there'll be more wonderful people out there in 10 years. And we just need to make sure that we support them and help them, find their power.
Lani?
You know what? I haven't thought about it at all. I feel like once my book gets off my lap, and I get into doing the documentaries, then I'll think about it. I feel like I'm still in this place of doing an action, even if I've been, as an activist, kind of out of action for a while. But I guess, I don't, you know what? I haven't given it enough. I saw your question when you sent it about a week ago, whatever that was. And I thought, oh my God, I haven't even thought of about that at all. And
You're still doing
stuff.
stuff.
Here it is a week later and I still haven't thought about it. But it just, somehow it feels early for me to do it. Isn't that funny when I'm going to be 80? God, I don't know.
More power to you. Let's we'll ask you at 100.
Thank you. Thank you. Hold that out for me, will you?
Okay, I've had time to think about it.
Okay.
Most important, I would like for my children, my grandchildren, and ironically, I have 10 great-grand and 10 grands, and 5, my husband and I together have 5 kids. But I would like to have, most of all, have had an impact on them, such that they can be comfortable who they are, and if they are, proud of their grandfather. But I don't want to be remembered one-dimensional. As yes, acknowledge me as a Black bisexual plus person, but after that, acknowledge other contributions that I've made to society, especially within my community and within the Black community.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you, ABilly.
Lorraine.
Sure, Michael. I want to be remembered for making it real, making it ordinary, making it common to be bisexual. Plus.
Oh, that's great.
Lorraine, you have been such an inspiration for me, and I've never told you. I told probably the others more, but one of the things that you inspired me and I learned about was talking about being differently abled, and before I had multiple sclerosis and before I had a handicap sticker, and you made sex and fun and getting around just a thing, and you could do it, and you can do it if your body changes, and you've been an inspiration for me in that way too.
I'm living in a retirement community with people who are increasingly disabled until we die. Hopefully we don't die all disabled, but if we live long enough, we know what Lani is talking about caregiving from every angle.
In my case, I could be the poster for health disparities among African-American men. I have multiple disabilities, the most recent being Parkinson. But my thing about disability, differently able, is to not let it hold you down, to figure out what you can do. I still have a voice. I shuffle and I tremor, the tremors are good for masturbating. We have to have a sense of humor, and at the same time call people on their shit. I don't know if you need to censor that or not, but that's the way it is. And I think being having disability, people make assumptions about us. You know, the fact that I have a girlfriend and a husband, people are appalled. And I said, well, you know, go get your own girlfriend, get your own husband. Leave my, you know, people assume that because we're elders that we are not able to be sexual, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Lorraine will tell you that. Everybody will tell you that.
Well, I saw Lani on the back of a motorcycle one time doing a safe sex demonstration that I will never forget.
Yeah. Well, Lorraine has seen me on the motorcycle, and ironically, I recently, just within the last year, had my driver's license renewed, and on the back it says I can still ride a motorcycle. Now,
Really?
I used to be able to get my legs up or whatever, but I don't know how the hell I'm gonna get them up on that motorcycle. But you know, I'll give it a try.
Well, I hope that,
And I want to say that I'm a grandmother, and my granddaughter contacted me, and she said, "Would you march in the San Francisco Gay Pride with me?" And I said, "Sure." I about fell over. I mean, not really, but because she hadn't come out to me. But she was part of the Gay Straight Alliance in high school. She goes to an all-girl Catholic prep school. And so that day she marched, and she was so fierce. She came out as Pan, and she had a Pan flag on that she marched, and I marched, and I have to say I marched like 27 years in a row in San Francisco because I love it. There's nothing more than walking down the street, who you are, fully you are, and people are cheering you, you know. So I hadn't marched since for 23 years, and there she was with me, my granddaughter, 14, and we it was fabulous. It was wonderful with her, and to be supportive and to be a role model. And she's going to have me come speak at her school.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, she's organizing a coming out assembly for the whole school.
Well, I hope that we will preserve the discussions going on in the chats and what they're saying about all of you, and we will send it to you because it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. It's been very distracting for me, but it's great stuff that they're reacting to all of you and every single one of what you're saying. You're such beautiful people, you know that, and you know that my love for you is amazing and inestimable, and the people who are on here who I didn't get to see and talk to, you know, I mean, God, from all over the world, it's so wonderful to see you guys be here. Write us and let us know at LA by Task Force if you want to have other topics of Bi-alogue and what you would like to see and what you'd come back for, and I hope we can make this a regular event. I thank my panel. Any last words for you guys? It's up to you.
I want to thank LA BiNet for doing this, and Mimi, Dr. Mimi, and Mike for Mimi for the background, the backstage, and Mike for hosting this. I know that's it's not easy to do, so thank you, Mike, for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was like herding cats, but no, it's I'm kidding. Just getting us all technically up to speed was hard enough, but we're going to get you on TikTok, Lorraine. We're going to get you on TikTok.
And happy National Coming Out Day to everybody.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. October 11th.
Thank you all so much. If the panel wants to stay on, we can talk a little bit after, but we'll see everybody else. Thank you for coming.